The Kentucky Horse Council held a candid conversation about how equine neglect and abuse cases are handled here in the Commonwealth.
Advocates say neglect cases involving horses can be difficult and time-consuming and seem to take too long to address for people who witness the situation. WKYT's Grayson Passmore spoke with the experts tonight for our top story at 10.
Lexington is the horse capital of the world. But that said, Kentucky is ranked 45 in the country for its lack of animal protection laws. A cruelty investigator with Animal Care and Control, Jai Hamilton, helps lead a candid conversation with around 80 other horse lovers. Organized by Kentucky Horse Council, the goal is to shed light on recognizing equine neglect and abuse.
So I think being self-aware enough to know that I don't make that much money, but I have 20 horses, and knowing that sometimes you have to scale down. You just simply can't afford that.
And the Kentucky Horse Council's work doesn't stop at these information sessions. Recently, they've been in communities in western and eastern Kentucky, helping some of those most in need.
It was not that there were injured horses, it's that there were horses that were left and horses that were no longer there.
Executive director of the nonprofit, Sarah Coleman, says they worked with volunteer veterinarians to vaccinate the surviving horses exposed to the floodwaters. And then they figured out how to distribute hay to farmers who no longer had structures to store it.
But the people who knew they had to give up their horses, I think, were the most heartbreaking, because they were doing what was right for the horse, so they didn't end up in a bad situation, but you could tell it broke their heart to relinquish them.
It's charity work the Horse Council continues every chance they get. In Lexington, Grayson Passmore, WKYT.
And Coleman is saying that she wants the Horse Council to be seen as a place for anyone seeking guidance or help.